Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Chris Legaspi, and today we are going to continue the composition lessons series, and we're going to talk about arguably the most famous or one of the most important composition books ever written, Composition of Outdoor Painting by the great Edgar Payne. And Edgar Payne is an American artist, well known for his beautiful landscapes. You can see here on the screen some examples of that. Comment below if you have heard of this book or have seen it or have it. It's quite popular and it's quite extensive. It's a bit intimidating. You can get a lot of information, not just for landscapes, obviously, which is what the book is focused on, but for composition for almost any purpose. So, what we're going to do today, we're going to briefly talk about the book and the author and his contributions. Then we're going to talk about some of the lessons that I learned in the book. There's a lot of lessons. This book is quite extensive. It's quite thick. It's quite thick, has a lot of words. So I grabbed four things that I think are really, really valuable among many, among many. Then we're going to do some drawing together. We're going to do lots of composition sketching today, as well as some demonstrations. So I hope you got some pencils or pen ready in your sketchbook. And before we begin, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my free Insiders Club. Insiders Club members get first access to these weekly live streams, and you also get access to other live events, and you get discounts on courses and programs, along with access to free lessons and other free content available only to subscribers. So all you have to do is go to www.drawwithchris.com, and there you can enter your email and you'll be good to go. Composition of Outdoor Painting, written by Edgar Payne, was originally published in 1941. There have been many updates and revised editions to this book. When I first started learning how to oil paint, this book was heavily recommended by one of my mentors. And once I picked it up, I understood how important he is. When I first saw his work, I immediately fell in love with Edgar Payne's work. Comment below if you are not familiar with his work. I'm sure if you're watching this, you are familiar with his work or a fan of his work. It's just tremendously well thought out and well designed, and quite what I like about Edgar Payne's work is that he is very obvious with his design. He's very purposeful and obvious. He shows you, hey, I consciously designed this painting in every facet. I designed the shapes, I designed the value, and he's very simple. That's one of the main lessons that we'll learn today is his designs, his compositions are extremely, extremely simple, and I think that's one of his core messages. Here's a quote from the book. If the student will adopt the habit of putting much time on the preliminary compositional pencil sketches, the preparation for painting, he will have gained aid that will benefit him as long as he paints. Wow. If the student will adopt the habit of putting much time on the composition, if the student will adopt the habit of putting much time on the composition, he will have gained aid that will benefit him as long as he paints. So what he's saying is that this stuff matters. This stuff matters. Landscape painters already know this. Comment below if you are a landscape painter, if you like landscape painting. If you are doing landscape painting, you already know before you put your brush down, you have to think about the composition you're doing, because obviously if you're doing a live landscape like in plain air, your margin of error is zero, almost zero. You got to get it right, or else the light will change and fade very quickly. The scene will change very quickly. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of like life drawing. You have to make a quick decision, and part of making good decisions is having compositional experience. And that's what he's saying here. He's saying, put in the work to your composition, and you will benefit as long as you are alive, as long as you're an artist making pictures. Putting time, effort into your compositions will help you your entire career. Maybe if you are watching this, you're a working professional, or maybe you're a lifelong hobbyist, perhaps you've been painting or drawing a long, long time. You know the importance of composition. And maybe you're watching this, maybe you're struggling with your composition. You're like, oh man, I got to learn as much from Edgar Payne as possible. I got to learn as much about this as possible. And here's another beautiful quote. The more thought and concentration put into his preparation, and what is the preparation, right? Compositional sketching. The easier will be the procedure and the finer the design. Let me repeat that because that's very good. The more thought and concentration put into his preparation, the easier will be the procedure and the finer the design. Wow. Again, the more, and I've been saying this for years. You know, if you maybe watch my videos, if you're taking one of my classes, I say this all the time. I say, put in the effort in the composition, put in the effort in your research, put in the effort in the design, and the actual drawing or the painting will be very, very smooth. And here he even claims the better your painting will be. The more thought and concentration put into his composition, the easier the procedure will be and the finer the design, finer the piece will be. That is powerful. So, you know, I always say my information is the best. And I can say that because I didn't invent it. A lot of what I teach and what I practice, what I've learned from the greatest in history, been handed down to me. And this just reinstates something that is one of my core values, is that you put in the work in the design and composition, the drawing and the painting will be quite smooth and in a way will almost take care of itself because the hard work is in the design. Let's look at the lessons from the book now. There are so many wonderful, wonderful lessons. The book is quite thick. It's quite wordy. I'll be honest, when I first read this book about, gosh, maybe at least 10 years ago now, a lot of it flew over my head because it is a bit technical. When I first read it, I was like, oh my God, what is he talking about? I mean, the pictures are incredibly clear, right? As an artist, there's lots and lots and lots of diagrams, of course. Any good compositional book will have tons of diagrams. There's many wonderful diagrams and drawings and sketches and things that you can learn very quickly by glancing, but actual to read his full thoughts is a bit intimidating. It's quite technical. So, you know, now having experienced 10 years of professional work or more and teaching, now I fully appreciate more, much more, what the actual writing and what his thoughts. So one of his main lessons, and this word, if you have read the book or if you are familiar with the book, you'll know this word probably appears the most in the book. And that word is masses, M-A-S-S. Mass, plural is masses. Mass is a big object or thing, basically. It's a big thing that dominates your painting. It's also known as grouping. So massing, masses, grouping. And, you know, if you follow my work or if you've taken classes or things or lessons along the same lineage as I am, American illustrative realist tradition, you'll hear this word not just for landscape painting, but this word also applies to figures, portraits, still lifes. Masses, grouping, putting things in a big old group, basically, right? If you have a bunch of trees, don't draw a bunch of trees, you know, group them together. If you have a bunch of leaves, right? We know not to draw individual leaves. You know, you want to group your leaves into big bunches that look like kind of tree shapes, right? If you have bushes, you want to group the bushes, right? If you're drawing a figure, you don't ever draw strands of hair. You draw a big old group or mass of hair. So grouping and massing is one of the core concepts of good design. And really the takeaway I got from Edgar Payne is that every time you compose, there must be some kind of dominant mass or thing. It can be, for example, here, these 2 pages from his book, this image on the left here talks about actual selecting masses, right? It could be literally a big old clump of trees that takes up 2/3 of the composition. It could be the entire ground plane or mountains that take up the bottom 2/3. It could be a group of trees or mountains that take up most of the composition except for a little sliver, a little rectangle of thirds. On the right here could be boats. Maybe it doesn't take up the entire composition, takes up a smaller percentage, but there are, you know, it's clearly there. There's clearly a big old thing that is the big mass, the important thing. And even sometimes the big thing in landscape can even be the sky. You can see here. I mean, there is a clear dark mass of the boat, but the sky is also a big thing. So groups, it's not just one thing that needs to be grouped. It's like multiple things can be grouped, can be masked, and should be arranged. So grouping, mass, and also massing simplifies the composition. Obviously, like look at the way he composes the mountain scene with the lower 2/3 using the rule of thirds here, and you can see it's just basically a big old mass of thing, huge, right? Takes up a big chunk, and that makes the design very, very simple, very approachable, right? If you saw this painting from a distance, you'd be like, oh, that's a earth and sky. Oh, that's a landscape. That's the ground and the sky. That's great. Let me investigate. It's so simple. If you look at this painting, right, big old mass of trees, you go, oh, okay, that's a big old clump of trees and a little bit of sky and some ground. Very clear. You can look at it from 20, 30, 40 feet away and you'll know exactly what it is. And that clarity is one of the things that attracts us to images is clarity. The read, do you get it right away? Is it clear right away? And masses does that for you. It amplifies your clarity. Lesson number 2 from Edgar Payne, opposing forces. Opposing forces. When I read this section, I immediately lit up. I was so happy. I was like, oh, yes. He reinforced something that I talk about endlessly for the last 15 years now. And I continue to emphasize is the idea of opposing force. Another way I call it is contrast. Things that contrast with each other or oppose each other. And there are so many ways to contrast line versus mass versus tone, straights versus curves, boxes versus circles, dark versus light, hard versus soft. So many ways. Texture, right? Rocks versus water, man-made things versus natural things, big versus small. That's a huge thing that we just talked about in terms of masses. Contrast, I believe it's a direct quote from the book, opposing forces are what create vitality. Vitality, and everybody watching this wants vitality in their work. The work that you love has vitality. It just grabs you and it holds on to you, and it's like, oh, so interesting and so stimulating and so fun to look at. And that is when you design, compose, and arrange opposing things. So here we have just wonderful, wonderful examples. Let's take a look at some. This one right here, this image right here at the upper top row, this one right here. Comment below, what are some opposing forces in this little thumbnail? Comment below. Do you see them? What are some opposing forces? Well, do you see opposing value, contrast in value? Yes, dark lights against this very bright shape and even a little bit of midtone. Do you see contrast in line? I see, well, some very straight, clearly straight, a little bit of like this bubbly wave curve. Again, I'm assuming this is a wave. It is sea and coast. What else? I see contrast in texture or implied texture, rock versus foam, right? The foam is kind of this soft, bubbly, softy, foamy thing. Rock, we all know is rock. So rock contrast in materials and things, texture. Let's do one more together. Let's look at right next to it. This one right here. Number 2. This one right here. Comment below, what are some opposing forces you see in this little thumbnail? Well, I see contrasting value, dark against light, a little bit of midtone. I see contrast in line, straight, curve. I see contrast in material, man-made boat, natural water, also the natural sky. And do you see contrast in texture? Ripples, ripples in the water versus smooth, calm water and smooth, calm sky. So just a really brief examples of the many things you can oppose. And also, one more, how about opposing masses? Remember, we just talked about masses. Are there opposing masses? What about this one? Do you see opposing masses here? Of course, there's a big hunking mass there and a smaller mass, big mass of boats and a smaller mass of sky. How about this one right here? Do you see opposing masses? This one's easy, of course. You see a huge chunk of mountain or rock or whatever, and then a little chunk of sky and water. You see that? That is also opposing forces. A big old thing versus a big old thing that occupies a lot of space versus a smaller thing or set of things that occupies a smaller space. So opposing forces in mass. Many, many, many ways. Here's one. This is opposing forces right here. Do you see that? Okay, there's opposing forces in small strip of sky, small strip of water or ground plane, water in this case, big mass of sky. What else? What else is opposing? Do you see it? In counterbalance, a little tiny boat, which is the subject. And look how small it is and look at its placement. It's on the right vertical thirds. And what it's doing is it's counterbalancing all of this visual weight of empty space. So that's opposing. A small thing opposing a giant thing. Counterbalance in visual weight. It's also known as opposing forces. Lesson number 3, selection. So this one may seem obvious, especially those of you who are already landscape painting and those of you who use little viewfinders. Comment below if you own a viewfinder or if you made one or if you used one before. A viewfinder is basically a little piece of cardboard or plastic that landscape painters use. There's an example of it right here, where you cut out a hole or a square in the middle to represent your canvas, and then you go around the scene and you try to pick out nice little chunks of composition. So that's a viewfinder, but that is a tool for selection. And I think the biggest big breakthrough moment I got from the actual reading of the book, right? Like I said, when I first read this book, all of the text, all of his thoughts and his writing was way over my head. It's quite technical, too technical for me at the time. But now I've sort of reread the book when the chapter on selection came up. The quote that really struck me is it worth it? Is it worth it? And that's really the first question to ask when selecting a composition when you're outside. This book is mainly for outdoor painters, right? When you're outside, you're sitting down to draw, sketch, or paint a scene, and you're trying to choose a good composition. The first question to ask is it worth it? Am I sitting at a good spot? Is my spot good? Does it have potential? Is a spot already good? Does a spot have potential? Can I redesign some things? That is a really important question and underappreciated question. Is it worth it? And I think if you're new, you most likely can't answer that question correctly every time. It takes a lot of experience to get that. And hopefully, like this book, if you pick up this book or if you're inspired by this video or others like it, you'll practice, you go through the process to improve your taste and selection, which is covered quite in depth in this book as well. That's another thing that Edgar Payne mentions in the book is the concept of taste, your ability to sense if a scene is good, if an image is good, if it's attractive, if it's unified, if it has harmony, if the composition is beautiful. That sense can be developed through exercise. He mentions a few exercises as well. So selection, and here we have a couple of pages from the book. You can see that there's a few little thumbnails here, and on the bottom there's that little diagram of a viewfinder. A lot of artists just use their hands. That's what I do. I don't have a paper cutout. I just I use both of my hands and make a square. So let's do this now. Take your left hand and imagine you're making like the chomping Pac-Man kind of face, but make it a square. So try to draw a rectangle with the shape of your hand, your left hand, and on your right hand, make your hand like a flat palm and cover the right side of that little window. And then you should have a square that you're looking through with your pointing finger, little hole between your pointing finger and your thumb, and the bottom will be your thumb. So that's the little square you make there. And then that's sort of the viewfinder that I use to make a composition. But you could see the fact that he stressed selection, to me, reinstates the original point that he made, is that preparation is the key to successful painting. In his eyes, composition is preparation, and part of preparation, the first part of preparation, is selection. So you can see how taking the time to select a good scene or using the viewfinder to find a good scene within a scene is a huge benefit. We'll do an exercise like this together. You can see here some of these sketches. They're clearly already well designed. These are the author sketches, Edgar Payne sketches. But these on the left, you can see some examples of probably fairly accurate to what he saw when he was practicing using a little viewfinder here. And the final lesson is S and O. I could also call it SO in Steelyard. Comment below if you have seen this image. If you do a Google, if you've never heard of this book and you do a Google search for Edgar Payne composition book, this page will pop up the most. This is probably the most famous page or pages in the book because it's, in my opinion, really this page represents sort of the core tenets, the foundation of Edgar Payne's philosophy: simplicity, geometric design. That's what the O is. The O is the circular. The S is the compound curve, the compound C curves. And he also uses a thing called the Steelyard, which is counterbalance, which is one of my favorite things, which I talk about all the time. And also geometry, pyramid, the cross, and the L, SOL, and Steelyard, I should call this chapter. The L, I use the L all the time. Any one of you who have taken my classes, you know I use L all the time. I use Steelyard all the time. I don't use O as much. I probably will now, but O is so great, or the circular design. So to me, the takeaway from this is that A, simplicity. Of course, we already know that. Simplicity really is the root of harmony. The less stuff, the less complex, noisy, unnecessary things you have in your image, the more likely it will be a harmonious, beautiful, and attractive image. So simplicity. And then the second takeaway is the importance of geometry. Geometry means simple things, like an S is essentially a curve, double curve. O is a circle, triangle, square is two boxes. The L is essentially a box or a corner, right? The Steelyard is essentially two rectangles or two boxes. Geometry is so powerful and so useful and quite harmonious. It's very simple, right? Again, simplicity leads to harmony. Harmony equals attractive pictures, right? What is more simple than a triangle? What is more simple than a big old mountain placed correctly? A mountain is essentially a triangle, or a triangular shaped tree designed and placed correctly. What is more simple than that? What is more simple than the beautiful simple 2/3 landscape with a beautiful winding road or a beautiful winding river? You can't get more simpler than that. What about the O? What about designing clouds in a circular form? You can't get more simple than that. Or the L. What if you put the mountain, let the mountain and the ground literally draw an L for you? What is more simple than that? That is simplicity, geometry, and harmony, all in one page. So I think if you only take away one lesson from this video or from this book, if you first time you're hearing about this book, is that simplicity and geometry are two very important tools to help you get more attractive compositions and pictures. Okay, we're going to do our first draw along together. I'm going to put up a picture on the screen, and then we're going to do the exercise together. Okay, here's the exercise. I call it rearrange and remix. So here's the brief. What we're going to do is we're going to rearrange the elements in a scene. So I'm going to show you a picture, a photograph. We're going to rearrange the elements to create a more harmonious composition. So we're going to pretend like we're going outside together. You, me, Edgar Payne, sitting outside together in our mind, in our dream scenario where we're learning from Edgar Payne directly. And then we're going to practice rearranging the scene using some of the concepts we talked about. And here are the rules. We're going to try to do at least 3 from one scene and black and white thumbnail sketches only. Edgar Payne really stressed the value of simple pencil sketches, and I wholeheartedly agree. And also paper cutouts. He briefly mentions paper cutouts in the back of the book, which also Molly Bang, remember all the way back to Composition Lessons 1, we talked about Molly Bang, picture this. She also emphasized paper cutouts as a useful exercise. So anyway, so thumbnail sketch only. And here's some questions to ask that are valuable. Here's the scene we're going to rearrange here. Grab this picture from Google Images, and we're going to have some fun with it. So here's some questions to ask. Number 1, what is the dominant thing? Number 2, what are the masses? Number 3, what are the opposing elements? What are contrasting things that we can use or emphasize? So question number 1, what is the dominant thing, right? Let's look at this scene right here. There's a couple of things we can play with, right? We can make the sky the dominant thing. We can make the big old mountain thingy back here dominant thing. We can make these big rocks in the foreground the dominant thing. We can even, right, make the little boat, a little tiny boat, the dominant thing. That could also be an opposing element. What are the opposing elements? Do you see them? Of course you see them. Big old thing, big old rock thing, little tiny boat. Big old rock thing, little tiny boat. Dark rock, very bright sky. Natural organic rocks, organic things, a little man-made thing. Hard rocks, soft puffy clouds. You see that? Or water. What are the masses? We just talked about the masses. Big old sky, big old water, big old mountain thingy. The boat's not a mass, but foreground's a mass, but we can edit that out. So those are just some food for thought. Let's practice and play with this. Okay, I got my little thumbnails ready to go. What are the masses? What's the thing? What's the contrasting opposing elements? Rearrange and remix. So I'm going to do one first, and then you can follow along with me for the other 3. Let's see. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do something very simple and fun and easy. I'm going to take this scene at face value. Let's say I'm sitting down here. We're sitting down here at our scene together. I'm just going to take it at face value and say, oh, okay, this scene's pretty good, which it is. It already has massive potential. It does need some tweaking, right? I would say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the scene at face value, basically kind of draw it as it is. And then I'll make one little adjustment, and then you will know exactly what it is and why I did it in a minute. So I'm just going to sketch like Edgar Payne. He says he recommends sketching with pencil. And I agree. We all like to draw and sketch. If you're watching this, you're probably just like me. You like to draw. In fact, I want to draw with pencil more. I'm such a pen addicted person. I'm sure if you've seen a lot of my videos, you know I love me some I love me some tone paper and marker and pen. Oh, there it is. There it is. That's all I needed right there. I'm not the best cloud person. I gotta admit, it's one of my weaknesses actually. Oh, I don't know. I've never, I've never felt good about my clouds. I can barely draw them. Jesus, jeez. Okay, so this is my first attempt at the rearrange and remix. Do you see what I did? Something very simple and easy and fun to do. And always one of the first things I suggest is to just edit out. And you see what I edit out? Of course, you see, I said, you know what, the foreground is nice, but what if I just take it out? Let's see. And boom, it's a pretty okay composition. It's okay. It needs, there's needs to be some balance over here. I'm not quite sure how to do that yet. Maybe I'll do a circle like Payne. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do this kind of circular thing. It does need eye flow. Like this area is too empty. It needs something so I could even lower the whole thing. Well, that's nice. Actually, it's better. What if I lower the whole thing? Whoa, that's a form of a remix. It's just rearranging things and just make it about the cloud. That's nice. What if I do this? Oh, that's nice. What if I do this? Closer. Okay, it's a little better. Oh, okay. What if I do this? Rearrange and remix the design a little bit. Okay, I think that's a little better. So anyway, that's my quick first sketch. For me, one of the ways I practice composition is just by sketching and not thinking too much, like go, oh, should this curve be, oh, is that curve the right thing? This is, the line is not straight, or should this be 1 millimeter up, or this is, not exactly on the thirds. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? So just sketch and trust your instincts. Now, if you're new and you're less experienced, of course, your instincts will need to be developed, obviously, but this is how you develop your instincts and trust. This is something I talked about in my coaching program recently, is how to open up your imagination, open up your instincts, your allow the creativity to flow through you. And this is one of the ways I do that. It's just to sketch, just be a kid, be a sketch, don't be an art student. Don't be, don't think, oh, I have to do a nice drawing every time. That will definitely kill your work. Okay, so here we go. One more rearrange and remix. So I have another idea. This one you can join with me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take what I have at face value, basically pretty much kind of what's there a little bit. Then I'm going to see if I can redesign the foreground, and I think I've just done it. Rearrange and remix. You see what I've done here? And now we have the cloud. Oof. Oh, ho, ho, ho. This is a good one. Woo. Now you see how I drew the arc, and you see the arc, which will be the geometric shape that I'm going to try to create with the cloud. Now I drew that first try, one shot, and it looks pretty good. I gotta, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but it's harmonious on one try. Now that took about 15 years to make that mark. So I don't want to. What I'm trying to say is that take your time. Take your time. Don't be hard on yourself. Like I said, if you're new or practicing, your ability to make big shapes and to do this process will be slow. Will be slow, and that's okay. So definitely give yourself permission to draw slowly, thoughtfully, and carefully. Don't think, oh, Chris did a compositional sketch in 30 seconds. I need to be that fast. No, I mean, it took 30 seconds on camera, but the experience took 15 years. So this, like this line took 15 years to make. So don't think you have to rush yourself. So anyway, let's get back to what I was saying here. So this is my second remix. You see what I did? I just took this chunk. I just took this chunk right here, this foreground chunk, and I just flipped it. You see that? I basically flipped it and kind of curved the shape a little bit because what I want is this. I want a lower kind of arc movement, a bit of an homage to Edgar Payne, but also it's good design. It's an eye flow. It's a curve, right? In a way, this is also a curve. And I think it's pretty good. Let me drop in some darks. Man, this is fun. I know I'm using Photoshop here for this video, but this reminds me of how much fun pencil sketching is. Normally, when I do these compositions, I do them in pen, and I quickly go to marker. You know, I try to get to the marker as quickly as possible. That's typically how I work. But this is it's reminding me that just sketching is really fun. I'm gonna do some more sketching with pencil. And let's see if I can. Oh, look at that, Edgar Payne, halftone water. Wow, it's kind of fun. I'm just trying to show the halftone of the water. That's what I'm trying to do here. And also give it a little bit of texture, right? Opposing forces, long vertical ripples versus curvy, puffy clouds versus blocky mountain. That is opposing forces in texture. Remember, Edgar Payne says opposing forces add vitality to your artwork. Who here does not? If you're watching this, I know you also want vitality in your work. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, so that's kind of fun. All right, let's do a couple more together here. How are you doing so far? How did you do in your second remix? I'm going to do one more here. Let's see. What can I remix? What can I change? So here I took something and I flipped it. Here, the first one, I took something and I edit by removal. Here I took something and edit by flipping. I just basically flipped it from left to right, right? Let's see what else I could do. Take what I have and just do a simple little tweak. What can I do? Oh, I got one. How about a crop? What if I do a crop? What if I just kind of zoom in? Let's do that. Let's just zoom in. Let's just zoom in on the boat. The boat is obviously very cool. There's also homage to our mentor for today, Edgar Payne. What if I took the boat and did this? Oh, 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 that is pretty. I gotta pat myself on the back. That is nice. You see that? All I did was just zoom in on the boat. Did my little viewfinder, right? Did my little viewfinder. Boom. That is cool. And then sketch, 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 sketch. Line, 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 line. Cloud. Let's see, cloud. Oh, I'm going to do all circular clouds for the next month now. So inspired by Edgar Payne. I'm going to put circles in all of my figure drawings now. In my composition class, We spent a whole week on psychology. Psychology and circle is one of the things that we heard. How the circle has very deeply embedded effect on human psychology. When we see circles, we immediately trigger certain emotions, thoughts, memories. So a circle is quite a powerful thing. See here, I'm noodling. This is what I mean by I'm trying to make kind of a pretty drawing now, which is I just told you not to do that. Okay, so just quickly add my boat lines. This is just fun. This little shoom 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 shoom. Haven't done this in a while. This is a great beginner exercise too. Is these long straight lines. All right, that's my third remix. I'm gonna do one more. It's kind of fun. Okay, so I did the crop. I did the edit by deletion, edit by flipping. I just zoomed in and made a little crop. Let's see. Made it about the boat. If we take out the boat, I could delete the boat. But the boat is so much fun. I want to keep the boat. Keep the mountain, keep the boat. Big old sky, circle, bit of the steel yard there. The foreground, can the foreground be included? Can it be edited? Can I move the boat? What if I move the boat? Let's try that. What if I move the boat? Supposed to be my last one. There's the foreground rock flipped, the boat, the mountain. Oh, that's nice. That's kind of nice. Oh, that's kind of nice. That's potential. That's some potential. Okay, that's some potential. There you go. I'll, I can accept that. You know, this kind of popped out of the ether. Oh, that's nice. It can have like really textury, kind of rocky kind of thing in the foreground to add some sharpness and contrast. These long straight lines to represent the water. This dark mass. Oh, it's dark mass of whatever mountain thingy behind the boat. Well, that's kind of nice. It's got potential. It might be a little too dark. A little too dark, I think. That's something else to play with too, is the value, right? What if I made the water darker than the mountain thing? What if I made this thing? Ooh, that looks nice now. It's a bit, you know, it's a bit more low key now. It's a bit more moody. Kind of changes the mood and the emotional quality. Before it's kind of, you know, bright, happy. When, you know, bright, clear, sunny days typically makes us happy as human beings. So in your composition, bright, sunny things, high key images make us feel happy. Low key images can have the opposite effect, make us scared and sad. Okay, I'll leave it at that. So I think that's a fun little remix, rearrange exercise. How did you do? How did you do? This is really cool. This is exactly what I do when I'm outside. Exactly what I do. I calculate these things in my head. I go, okay, is what I have good? Is it have potential? Are there nice dark masses? Is there nice contrast? Are there things is there nice geometry that I can emphasize, tone down, manipulate? So I had some really fun exercise, and definitely, I would definitely encourage you to try more. Don't just stop at this video or this image. I'm gonna do a demonstration. You can draw along with me as well. This is a lot of fun to do. we're going to practice selection using a viewfinder. So remember, Edgar Payne stresses the importance of selection. One of his tools, and of course, any landscape painter already knows this, is the viewfinder. So we're going to practice that today. So here's our assignment. Select at least 3 harmonious compositions from the scene and create 3 compositional sketches. So the rule would be at least 3 black and white thumbnails only. And again, questions to ask. Is it worth it? is what I'm looking at good? Does it have potential? What are the masses? What are the opposing elements? And what design or structure that I see? That's an important question. That's an important question. Is it worth it? What are the masses? What are the opposing elements? And what design or structure do I see? Meaning, is there the circle? Is there an S or potential for an S? Is there a triangle? Is there the steel yard, the asymmetric balance? Is the L there? Right? Are those frameworks that Edgar Payne outlined? Are they there? Are they clearly there? Well, you can clearly, in my opinion, you can clearly see a curve, right? You guys see that? Clearly see a curve. I'll just go this because this is important, so I'll go through this with you together. I clearly see a curve. I clearly see a triangle. I clearly see an L. There's potential for 2 L's. You see the L? I clearly see a curve. There's an S. There's a literal S in the ground. And of course, I could make it more or less S curvy, right? So lots of potential. And I actually took this picture. This is near my home. I was waiting for someone to meet someone. I thought, oh, that's a nice composition. Let me give it a try. And I'm a very amateur, very beginner photographer. But anyway, these questions are some of the questions from the book, and these are also the same questions that I ask of myself. So let's practice the viewfinder now. Okay, I got my little simulated thumbnail here, simulated viewfinder. So let's go through our composition. I think the first thing to do is take it at face value, meaning just look at it overall. At face value, it's pretty good. It has some potential. It does. Like I said earlier, like I mentioned earlier, my first analysis, I saw lots of things. I saw the curve, the S, the triangle, the L. I saw the L, the lower 2/3, right? Rule of thirds also in place. So it does have potential already. This alone can be a pretty decent composition, but let's practice the viewfinder first. So with that said, let's see the viewfinder and go through. Right, do you guys see any composition so far? I do. I just looked up on this one. This one is pretty good. This one's pretty good. This one's pretty good. It's got masses. It's got the curve. It's got contrast in material, texture, value. Oh, this is pretty good. Got this little banana thing. So that's my first one. I'm going to grab this one right here. Okay, I got my nice little composition here. So in my little viewfinder, I've got the curve. Oh, that is a nice little curve, actually. Scene changed a little bit. There you go. Okay, the scene changed a little bit. There's a little opening in the trees. You see that? So this is what I see essentially. This is what I see right there. I see a big mass of stuff, a light shape, curved road, a little light shape of sky, and that is pretty cool. I I I'm gonna work with this. I like it. It's very blocky. It's very graphic. It has a curve. It's very clear. It's very simple. There's a little tree. So there's a little banana tree, I think it is. A banana tree. That could be the object. Maybe I can put someone's mailbox right here. Might be fun. Just as a opposing thing, right? All of this natural stuff, it'd be fun to put a man-made thing there, sort of like the boat we just played with. Lots of verticals. So vertical lines can be opposing forces to horizontal. And then let me just fill in the value. It'll make more sense once I add value. Okay, my sketch is quite ugly. I gotta admit, it's a bit ugly. That's okay. I'm just letting my imagination flow right now. And just kind of sketching for fun, letting things flow. Okay, has some potential. I think I made these too dark. These foreground little bushy things. I think it should be a nice mid-tone. So it kind of separates in value a little bit. Let me do that. Let me try to make them mid-tony. That's a little better. Now I've added some mid-tone. And then the ground. What I'm going to do with the ground is add these horizontal strokes, right? Lots of vertical, lots of scribbly strokes. But these horizontal strokes will add, comment below, what is the lesson we learned about horizontal versus vertical? That's right, opposing forces, contrast. So by this conscious design choice, that's a conscious choice to make my marks very horizontal in a world with very long, tall, vertical trees. That is a conscious design choice to add vitality, right? Edgar Payne says, opposing forces add vitality to our work. Boom. Gave it a little S for some flavor. All right, I like that. So that works for me. Let me move on here. Okay, how did you do? How did you do? Let me find another little frame. Oh, that one is pretty nice. You see the V? The V I could design as a circle. It's kind of flat. It needs to be a little bigger actually. It needs some ground plane. Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe as a vertical it works. Doesn't have to be a box. But I already kind of made it a box. My okay. This has potential. A little bit more tree, a little bit more opening. Yeah, this has potential. You see the L? I like that. I'm going to use the L here. So the L is my framework. Boom. And then the steelyard, bit of the steelyard. The steelyard is what Edgar Payne calls the steelyard is what I call the counterbalance scale. Maybe I can put the road in as well. Oh, the road adds something because this is such a organic thing. It's basically a jungle, right? Jungle or forest kind of thing. Little Asian tropical forest kind of thing. You can see the beautiful beach in the background. So the L is my core thing here, my core structure. The L, I use this all the time. And I'm going to curve this tree to make it feel more organic, of course. Whoa, this has got some potential. It's a bit of a to the untrained eye, this scene can be a bit boring. In fairness, it's just a little too much green. So that is not enough contrast, right? Not enough opposing things. So I have to use my design muscles here to really add some contrast. So the in this, even in my frame, I don't have the curved road, but I know that it just needed something here. It's just a little too much, like leaf, and it's too much sketchy, rough kind of marks and not enough long, smooth, pretty curvy marks. So that was my decision making for that. Okay, so that's a decent framework, a decent sketch. It needs some potential, but for the sake of time, I'm going to move on here. So how did you do on this first viewfinder exercise? And if you're doing this at home, you can pause the video and keep going. Don't stop it too. But for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to another scene. We'll do one more from another scene, and this will be an urban scene. I'm going to do one more example, and this will be an urban scene. And I just grabbed this photo from Google. Of course, we're going to ask the first question: is it worth it? Is it worth it? And at first glance, of course, I say yes, or else I wouldn't have picked it. But yeah, it's worth it. Why? Can you see why I thought this picture would be has a pretty good composition already? Do you see it? Comment below. Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? Well, we just talked about it. Of course, it's the L. Do you see the big old L? The big old L. Mass on the right, mass on the bottom. That's an L. This is a reversed L, but still an L. Still beautiful. So let's get to work here. Let's find some scenes. Okay, I got my little viewfinder here. I kind of like it at face value, the way it was. It's really nice, but because I want to maintain that L, and I'm gonna do that right now. I think I'm gonna make this a little bigger. Oh yeah, that's a nice little L, right? This is so nice. Of course, I need to rearrange something. Oh, that's a let. I'm like, oh, that's see, I got a good scene here, and I got a good one here. So maybe somewhere in the middle. Oh, lower. Oh, that's nice too. Oh, so much potential. Oh, so much potential. What do we do here? You see how this building will have to be edited? Oh, I can't decide, guys. What do I do? Let's just go right here, right down the middle. Okay, this an L all day long. I will take L. I will take L's all day long, and not L as in loser, L as in composition, compositional framework. The rule of thirds L. That's what I call it. Edgar Payne also uses the L. All day long. L is awesome. Do I dare do this? There is a road here. Road, I can do this. That is nice. Or I could use the L plus the S. Oh, do I dare make a curved road in my urban scene? I don't know. That is pretty attractive if you ask me. I won't do a curved road, but I will imply a curved road. Watch. Maybe I can't. Not that shape anyway. I'll do this. How about that? Okay, and here's a bus thingy, some foreground thingies that need to be. This big old tower that definitely has to move, right? If we stick it where it is, might not look that good. What if I move it over here? Oh, L plus steel yard. So this is steel yard. Steel yard is counterbalance, the counterbalance design. Basically putting a small thing surrounded by lots of negative space to counterbalance a huge, massive space like this big old building, which will be our dark and our foreground. Yeah, this is cool. Of course, I'm not going to mess with the details now. Just kind of sketch, 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 sketch. Going to imply the curve. And I will do medium tone vertical for this kind of sort of background. And I will do slightly dark mid-tone for the foreground. And I'll use horizontal strokes again, just like we talked about. So we're going full on Edgar Payne, applying his lessons already. That's great. A lot of these things have to be move the lamppost. I think good thing to move. I definitely still need to play because there's a lot of stuff in urban scene, so it does take a lot of skill to simplify. But there's stuff in any landscape really. I could put a person here. That would be nice, or a group of people. Whoa, that would be nice. A little group of people, little things, little light and dark shapes, kind of a little Jeremy Mann flavor. Maybe that would be kind of cool. And then the cloud. I think what I'll do is I will put busyness and noise here, and then calm in the cloud. So that's a contrasting thing, right? Those other ones I put, lots of. I also put vertical in the cloud. How about that? Vertical, long, calm lines of cloud, light space, white space. And okay, that I'm pretty happy with that composition, and I think this is a good stopping point right here. Obviously, don't stop at one if you're following along at home, and definitely try this for yourself and try more images than this. And like Edgar Payne said, this is where you earn quality work, is putting in the work, the labor, the effort in composing, in designing. And part of that is really, asking good questions, asking the right questions, and making good decisions, and having really clear and simple framework and ideas that you can apply to your scene to help you make the most of whatever scene you happen to be. Because really, we as artists, we have the ability to make the ordinary beautiful, and this is one of the ways that we can do that. And landscape painters are known for that. They're known for making our regular world beautiful in their pictures, and composition is definitely a huge part of that.